and welcome to Bella's Corner. I'm so happy to have you here. Today we are talking about a very deep subject, something that may be triggering and is a bit of a more vulnerable talk. We're going to be talking about the aftermath of sexual assault. Before we get into it, I do want to quickly provide some hotlines, lifelines, and some support for anyone who is experiencing or has experienced sexual assault. 1-800-RESPECT, which is Domestic, Family and Sexual Violence Counseling. We have RAIN, which is Rape, Abuse and Incest National Network. We have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Additionally, if you're going through anything mentally, you can contact Kids Helpline or alternative helpline resources that are not specific to sexual assault. Sexual assault is a very difficult topic to speak about. There is so much that you can talk about in terms of sexual assault. Specifically, obviously, we're talking about the aftermath today, but there's also, like, how do you know if it was sexual assault? What actually counts as sexual assault? And how to get through it. And there's also, like, so many different things around discussing it with other people when you get in like a new relationship and you kind of have to sit them down, have to talk and be like, look, this happened to me and this is what my life is like now that has happened. And also just being able to tell someone for the first time. And you know, I've told so many people and it never gets easier. And so there's so many things you can talk about, but I wanted to specifically talk about the aftermath because I think the aftermath is the part that's kind of the loneliest and the hardest in terms of like right after it happens, or even when you're in it, if it's an ongoing thing. The aftermath is really difficult, and so I wanted to open up a place where I could discuss and help people kind of feel like, okay, like someone else understands what I'm going through. I'm going to begin with kind of sharing like what happened to me, not in depth, but just very briefly, so that we kind of have that understanding, and then maybe if you've been through something similar, you can feel more of a connection to what I'm saying. So I was in a relationship and my boyfriend at the time was sexually assaulting me for about 3 months. And at the time I didn't even kind of clock that it was sexual assault. I knew that it was wrong. It was just a lot of coercion, if that's how you pronounce it, and just essentially begging me and guilt tripping me. So at the time I knew that it was wrong and I knew that something was off. I knew like this is not right, but it didn't really clock to me that it was sexual assault because it's not something people really speak about, I guess, about like what actually counts. And especially when you're in a relationship, like you almost feel like you owe it to them, or they make you think that you owe it to them. And so then it gets difficult, like the line kind of gets blurry of like, well, I'm dating this person and I love this person and they love me, so surely it doesn't count, you know? So it was a very difficult thing. I kind of realized after I got out of the relationship, I always knew that it was wrong and that what he was doing was wrong, but I never realized the extent to which it was, and that it was actually sexual assault. And I don't know if it counts as domestic violence, speaking out loud here. I think that you would have to be married for that, but it's kind of in the same realm where you feel so safe with a person and you kind of like giving your life to a person. And you know, when you're in a relationship, you're half of each other, you know, you're two halves and you make up a whole, and so you kind of become one and you share your life with this person, and everything you do is like kind of building your life with them to inevitably spend it together if that's what the world intends, if that's your fate. And I think it's really difficult when you're in a relationship with them because it's like you're meant to feel so safe with them and they're meant to be like your person, and then suddenly it happens and everything just kind of gets confusing because you're like, well, they're my person. That's my I love this person and I know that they love me, or I thought that they loved me. And then it all gets confusing and it's a really difficult place to be, essentially. So yeah, I kind of realized after, and it was really difficult to come to terms with. I think especially because I still loved him. He broke up with me. It was kind of how it happened, and it had nothing to do with any of this. And I still loved him and I still wanted to be with him, and so it was this really difficult place of like, I love this person, but you have done something so disgustingly wrong to me, but I still want to be with you. It was this like really weird line, and I hadn't told anyone at this point. I hadn't told anyone, and it kind of got to the point of I was trying to find a way to let it out, like kind of like closure, or like I wanted to feel the way that I felt with him with someone else. So I was like having, like, I wouldn't call it flings, but I was like flirting with a bunch of guys and trying to get with guys, and my current and boyfriend forever, might I preface, but at the time we had like just met, and we like kind of had a thing going on but not really, and then I was like, you know, we were like kissing and whatnot, and it was kind of just like to relieve this whole thing of like, I feel so disgusted within my own body because I went through something that was unconsensual, that now I just want to be able to consent and know that like I've consented to this and feel happy in the fact that I've consented, you know? So I was like finding opportunities to be able to consent to things happening so that I could feel like I had that control, because you really just do lose control, or it feels that way. It feels like you have no control over your own body and over your own voice, because it feels like whatever you say isn't going to change what the other person does, especially in my circumstance of, you know, being begged into it. It's like you feel like, okay, well, even if I say no, it doesn't mean anything. It's not going to change anything. And so for me, I just really wanted to find opportunities where I could give consent so that it's like, you know, at least it was consensual, I guess. Like, at least I agreed to it. At least it was consensual, essentially. And yeah, it was really difficult. So I was just trying to be able to understand like what being intimate with a person would be like if it was consensual, because, you know, I was 14 and 15 at the time of when this happened, and I had never been intimate with a person in that way, and the fact that it was unconsensual, you know, changed my whole view of intimacy as a whole. And it kind of makes you feel like, well, there's two ways to go about it. So for me personally, I felt like, well, I never want to be intimate with the person ever again. This is not for me. I went through a period where I was like, yeah, I'm asexual. I don't feel that way towards people, and I never want to be intimate with someone in a physical way. And yeah, that's kind of how I was internally, but then externally, I took the other route of like, okay, well, now I have to be like intimate with everyone, which is not literally what happened, but you kind of go into like hypersexuality, kind of where you just feel like you need to be intimate with someone. Like in my experience, it was like, I just need to have that experience and I need to erase the negative and make it a positive. Even though I had convinced myself like I'm never going to be intimate with a person ever. I'm never going to consensually do that with anyone that's a very difficult part of the aftermath, especially at this point. Like, I hadn't told anyone what happened or what was going on, and I kind of was just playing around with guys. There weren't many. I'd say there was probably 3 or 4, so it wasn't too extreme, but you know, there was definitely a certain guy that I definitely did play around with, and at the time it obviously was not intentional at all. I was very heartbroken. I was going through a breakup, but I was also going through being able to understand what had happened to me and trying to understand that it wasn't my fault and that I could regain my voice and my body. And in understanding that was that part where I wanted to take out the negative experience and turn it into a positive. And so I was using like any guy that would give me attention to try and do that. It wasn't a conscious thing at the time. I kind of realized it after, like, upon reflection. I didn't realize, like, at the time, this is what I'm doing this on purpose. It was just kind of like what was happening. And yeah, it was difficult. I felt really disgusting in my own body for a good while. A lot of people talk about like trying to scrub it away in like the shower, and that's something that sometimes like you just still feel them. And you know, it's been 2 years for me, which is crazy. I thought it was like the end of my life when it happened. And I still do feel very disgusted in ways. It's a very, very disgusting thing that happens in terms of the other person's intentions, and what the other person is doing is very disgusting and wrong and inhumane for a person to perform acts like this and force themselves onto people sexually. And even if it's just like sexual harassment, is very disgusting for a person to ever do that. And just whenever I think about it, I think I just feel very disgusted. At the time, it was more disgusted in myself, and I didn't want to tell anyone because I was like, I can't believe that I've done this, even though it wasn't me. Like, I didn't choose for it to happen to me, but at the time I was like, I can't believe that I've done this. Like, I can't tell anyone. You know, I'm Christian. What are they gonna think? They're gonna know that like I've done stuff intimately with another person at like 15, 14 years old, and even though it wasn't consensual and I knew that it wasn't, I just felt so disgusted, and I was like, people are just gonna judge me. They're gonna hate me. They're gonna think, you know, I'm the biggest sinner and I'm just like the worst Christian, and they're gonna see me differently. I was just so disgusted with myself. I was like, I cannot believe that I've done this. And it took a while to realize like it was me. Like, I didn't do it. You know, it wasn't an optional thing. But that disgust is a very difficult part of experiencing sexual assault. I think, yeah, it kind of sticks with you. And like I said, at the time it was disgusting myself, and now I just feel disgust with the situation. Like, I can't believe people go out and do these things to people. It's so disgusting. It's so evil is what it is. And there's so much that goes on when you realize what has happened and when you reflect on it. And I think flashbacks is a very key part of that. Getting put back into that scenario, like mentally, like you see yourself back there, you feel their hands on you again, and that's like one of the worst things, I reckon, is the flashbacks, and is just being able to feel their hands on you, because it's almost like it never goes away. It's like a phantom touch. Like, you just always feel it, and you always just feel icky in your skin. Like, for the longest time, I genuinely just wanted to rip all of my skin off. But I can't even explain what that feels like, and I'm sure like you watching this, like, you know what that's like. So flashbacks are a very key part of the whole aftermath, and it's something that's very difficult to navigate, especially when you get in a relationship or you're you like someone, you're in a situationship, like anything like that. I think even for me, it's just like any physical touch, I just can't do it anymore. And that's something really difficult, especially in a big family that is very key on physical touch and hugs and all of this. It's like, it gets difficult because I was never like the most keen on physical touch, but after this experience, it just changed completely. And being touched is like almost my worst nightmare. Like I could crawl out of my skin in that moment, and I still feel that way. And so it was really difficult because obviously my family noticed the shift, and they noticed like, okay, suddenly she refuses to get hugs and things like that, and she refuses to like sit closely to us and whatnot. And I think that's also really difficult, is when it's not even just romantic relationships are affected, like all your relationships are. Physical touch has been a really, really difficult part in my journey because it's just something I just can't even tolerate anymore. Like it's something I can't handle. And it's really difficult because it really does just make you want to crawl out of your skin. It brings you right back, and it just makes you feel all disgusting again. For me personally, there is a lot of anxiety around romantic relationships. Not so much now. I'm in a committed relationship now, but at the start of the relationship I'm in now and in other like situationships, it's really difficult because I would think all the time about, if they want to be intimate with me, am I going to say yes just because I feel like I have to? And then I would like doubt myself, and it's just a really difficult place to be in, where you think like I had to go on reflection. If my boyfriend did do something unconsensual, will I even have the strength to leave and to stand up for myself? Like, it's happened once and I would like to believe that I would, but being sexually assaulted, it just takes your voice. Like, you just don't have a voice anymore. You don't feel like you can stand up for yourself because you don't feel like it's gonna amount to anything. You don't feel like nothing's gonna come from it. So, my boyfriend's the best, and he understands to the extent that he can about, what I've gone through and the effects of it. And, he's obviously not going to do this really cruel thing to me, but at the start of the relationship, it was really difficult to believe that he wouldn't. It was really difficult. It was something where, we were best friends beforehand, so I knew him and I knew like he's not going to do this to me, but I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe a romantic relationship where you wouldn't be put through something like that. Like, at the time, it was like, does that even exist? Is there even a world where you can have a relationship with someone and not be forced into intimacy? And it was something that I really struggled with. It was really difficult. And unfortunately, sexual assault is something that almost becomes a part of you if you let it. I think for me, I definitely did let it, especially at the time, and now it's a part of me in terms of being able to share with others and spread awareness and make others feel seen. But it's something that does live with you. Unfortunately, it's always going to be a part of your story. But I guess you affect the way that it affects your life. At the start, you have control, but you feel like you don't, because it's such a thing, especially, when it happens so suddenly. It's such a thing that it just makes you feel like you've lost all control. You're helpless and you're hopeless and you can't do anything. And so you feel like you have no control over yourself, over the situation, over how you heal, even though you do, and you do eventually realize that. when you do seek help, specialized help, then you do grow to realize like you do have control, and if you really work at it, this isn't something that has to control the rest of your life. It'll always be a trauma that, you know, will be a part of your history and will live inside you, and, you know, it may still affect you from time to time, but I guess if you like work on it, you're going to be able to gain that control back. And that's something that I'm still trying to do. Even though it's been 2 years, it's not the easiest thing. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Being sexually assaulted is one of the hardest things. I've been through a lot, and I reckon that is genuinely like second on the list of hardest things that I've been through. And yeah, it's something that still affects me to this day. It's the only thing that has been such a long-term influence on who I am as a person. And yeah, it really just makes you feel guilty, especially when you can't have that physical touch with like platonic relationships and family and stuff. And, you know, physical touch is my love language. It's the way that I receive love best. And that really affected that, because it was like, okay, this is how I like receive love, but like you're abusing it and you're turning it into something negative rather than like, oh, this is how I receive love. Instead, now it's like, okay, the only way that I know someone loves me is if they do that, if I get intimate with them, which obviously it's not true at all. But these are the kind of thoughts that go through your head. These are the kind of things that you end up going through, the kind of struggles that you have to face after such a terrible thing happens to you. And it's so unfortunate because you can't like do anything about it. I think it's especially hard to come to terms with what has happened when it's not the typical way that you hear about. You know, the typical way of like some stranger or like a close friend, you know, was trying to get with you and you said, no, I don't like want to, or I don't like you that way, and they forced themselves on you and you said no and you said stop, and, you know, you got held down or something. And it doesn't always happen in that way. Sometimes just those really subtle things. Sometimes you're drunk, sometimes you're high, you know, sometimes you've said no not in a verbal way. So you've either like turned away or tried to push them off you, or you've even just said like, oh, I don't feel like it, or like you've shook your head, or you've kind of closed yourself off, and they've still gone and done it. And it's like, it's not that typical way, so it's harder to come to terms with, especially when it is that like begging, and then you eventually just say yes, and you're like, well, I said yes, so it's my fault, you know, I put myself up to this, but they've begged you. They've not taken no for an answer until they have received that yes. And so it's really not your fault, and it really is still sexual assault. And I think that's one of the hardest things to come to terms with, is that you've experienced sexual assault in a way that is not spoken about as much and is not normalized. Like, people don't generally maybe see it as sexual assault because they haven't heard about that, and they haven't been educated into knowing that that is a form of sexual assault. I know that for me, it was difficult to even like look at myself. I wouldn't want to even like see my own body. Like, you know, you go in the shower and you scrub until your body's red, and then you hop out of the shower and you're drying yourself, and there's a mirror right there. I'm like, I would feel disgusted even just looking in that mirror if I, you know, didn't have clothes on. And just getting dressed and everything, it was really difficult. It's such a hard thing to go through, because these are the things that people like don't speak about when it comes to the aftermath. There is so much that happens after experiencing this, and it's not something that's spoken about enough. And then you kind of just feel so alone in these emotions. and in these experiences because you feel like you're the only one that's gone through it, and you feel like no one else understands, and you feel like you're just going crazy when you're not, but you believe that you are. So it makes it difficult, and I guess that's why I'm here trying to speak about like my experience and my experience of the aftermath, because you're not going crazy, and you know, people do understand what you've been through, and people have been through what you've been through, and I understand. And really, you're just not alone. You're not. You may feel alone at the moment. You may feel like you've lost everything. You've lost yourself, you've lost your voice, you've lost your own rights to your own body. You know, you may feel like you can't speak up about it, and you can. And you will gain the strength to speak up about it. For right now, you're using that strength just to get through what happened, just to process it, just to understand and deal with all the whole aftermath of it all. And that's okay. You don't have to speak about it right now. But if there is someone that you want to speak to, and if this video has spoken to you in any way, 100% like contact me. Whether I know you or I don't, you can head to my Instagram, which is linked on this channel, and the username will be in the description, and just shoot me a message. And even if it's just like, you know, saying like you've been through the same thing, or saying like this is what I'm experiencing, or even if it's just you need to let it all out, you just need to tell someone, like it's at the tip of your tongue and you just need to say what happened, just message me, because I understand and I'm here for you. Something I'm still working through, and so we can work through it together. I hope this video has connected to someone in some way, and someone feels less alone. Thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable. I hope this helped you in some way, and I'll see you guys in the next video.